Zoning appeals to order. First item on this evening's agenda is approval of the minutes from the July 23rd, 2020 meeting. Minutes have been sent to members of the board and ample time to review. Are there any changes or amendments to the minutes as they are written? All right, there being none, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as outlined.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Ayes have it. The minutes are approved. Next item on this evening's agenda is a warm welcome to Shalonda Dees, who is our newest board member. Shalonda, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I'm not quite sure if you're a harbinger of things to come, but it's been a while since we've had 3 hearings in one night. So I don't know if that's because of you or what, but we're glad to have you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
And
Good
feel
evening.
free to ask questions as we move along. It's going to be completely fine.
Thank you.
Next item on this evening's agenda is hearing number BZA 2020-06. This is a variance request from the rear and side setback requirements in Table 2-6.1.1 in the Unified Development Ordinance. Location is 1256 East Palmetto Street at South Jefford Street. Tax map number 90117-22-02. Owner of record is Margaret M. Poston, and the applicant is Randy Scurry. The board will now hear from staff with their findings.
All right. Thank you, sir. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm going to share our PowerPoint slide so that everyone can see it. All right. This is a variance request for the setback requirements for 1256 East Palmetto Street. This is in the Commercial General Zoning District. If you'll bear with me for just 1 second. There we go. All right, so we're looking for a variance for the side and rear setbacks for Jackie Poston's gas station on Palmetto Street. It's actually East Palmetto Street. I apologize.
That's right.
East Palmetto Street, 1256. Here we are. The blue is the city limits. If you go east, you would head towards the airport. Here's a little bit closer view. You can see the city limits run out and it becomes the county. And this is actually a triangular shaped set of parcel. It's surrounded by East Palmetto Street, Cemetery Street, and also South Jefford Street. It is zoned commercial general. And the future land use is commercial auto urban, which would fall in line for a gas station along East Palmetto. Here is the proposed site plan. The black lines are the setback lines for the commercial general district. The red dashed lines are the proposed addition. The gas station is currently about 1,000 square feet. It was constructed in 1975, and they're just looking to expand about 1,200 square feet. They're looking for a 2-foot variance along South Jefford Street. So that'd be about an 18-foot setback. And they're looking for a 25-foot variance from the rear setback, which would be, they would need about 15 feet to accommodate this proposed expansion. So here's some pictures. The front of Jackie Poston's place, and then down at the bottom, you get kind of a rear view of the building itself. Now here's some more pictures. As you can see, it's surrounded on 3 sides by Jefford, Cemetery, and East Palmetto. Really not a lot of room in the front to expand due to the location of the gas tanks. So the variance conditions. Variance from the terms of this ordinance will not be contrary to the public interest. The building was constructed prior to the adoption of the current Unified Development Ordinance. The old zoning ordinance would allow a 20-foot rear setback. The current is 40. The old ordinance would also allow a 10-foot side setback, and the current is 20. And as I said, the lot is surrounded on 3 sides by street, limiting the options for expansion. that the spirit of the ordinance will be observed. The east side of the property requiring the 2-foot setback variance is right next to commercial property. The south side where they're requesting a variance is adjacent to residential property, but it being there since 1975 will not lead to significant changes. And actually, I believe Mrs. Poston owns the property to the south of that vacant lot. That there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertain to this piece of property. This commercial property is surrounded on all sides by roads, limiting expansion possibilities, and that this does not apply to other property in the vicinity. The hardship is due to the unique layout of the parcel, again being surrounded by streets, and the original layout of the building with respect to previous zoning ordinances. That because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to this particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. The current setbacks for a commercial building in the commercial general district would restrict the owner's desire to do this expansion to their building and accommodate their business needs. That the authorization of a variance would not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property. The proposed building expansion would be approximately 1,500 square feet to the existing gas station, which has been there since 1975 as a continuous use, and future land use is geared towards this type of development along East Palmetto Street. And that does conclude staff report.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions for staff from the members of the board?
Yes, I need to, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, Mr. Poston.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, this particular case, I might have to abstain from putting in my vote, yea or nay, due to a potential conflict of interest. And I need to go ahead and make that known and to abstain myself from this case.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions from members of the board for staff?
Yes, Ruben here.
Yes.
For the staff, by encroaching on the or allowing the building to be closer to those two roads than the ordinance would allow, does it have any effect on the turning sight lines of any of the intersections? Was that evaluated?
Oh yeah, that was exactly right. I don't think that, especially on the side where it's only a 2-foot variance, and then the rear, I just don't see it encroaching into any sight visibility triangles. No, sir.
Okay, I don't either.
Yeah, just to be safe. That's
I
right.
just wanted to make sure that it was addressed or at least looked at.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chico. Any other questions from members of the board? All right, there being none, thank you very much. Appreciate that. The board will now hear from the applicant, Mr. Randy Scurry. Mr. Scurry, can you hear us? You gotta wake him up. Hey, Randy, can you hear us? Is he on mute? Is he the call in?
If it's the 621 number, that's his number.
That's a board member.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. He might not have been able to attend.
Okay. Is there anybody else who in the meeting that wishes to speak on behalf of either Mr. Scurry or Ms. Poston? All right, there being none, the chair will now entertain a motion to either approve or deny the variance request from members of the board. All right. There being no motion, the chair will make a motion unless there's an objection. I make a motion that we grant the request for a variance based upon the following findings of fact. The variance from the terms of the Unified Development Ordinance will not be contrary to the public interest when, because of special conditions, a literal enforcement of the provisions will, in this individual case, result in unnecessary hardship, in that the building was actually constructed prior to development of this ordinance, and by enforcing, well, the lot is surrounded by 3,000 streets, limiting an option for expansion, and a literal enforcement of this ordinance will prevent them from expanding the building. That the spirit of the Unified Development Ordinance will be observed, public safety and welfare secured, and substantial justice done, because both sides of the property require a 2-foot setback, which will be adjacent to commercial properties. The south side is adjacent to residential property, but the proposed expansion will not lead to significant changes in the character of the area. And as Mr. Chico brought up, it will not be detrimental to any traffic flow patterns. That there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property, namely that this commercial property is essentially surrounded on all sides by roads, which limits expansion, or that these conditions do not generally apply to other properties in the vicinity, and that the hardship is limited to this particular piece of property because of the unique layout of this property and being surrounded on 3 different sides by streets. That because of these conditions, the application of the Unified Development Ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property by the current setbacks for a commercial building in the commercial general district would restrict the owner's desire to expand the building and to accommodate their current business needs. And then finally, number 6, that the authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of this variance, because the proposed expansion is approximately 1,500 square feet to the existing gas station and will not be a detriment to the character of the neighborhood, and will allow the owner to continue to use the property as they have since 1975. And that is my motion, and the chair will now entertain a second. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Who was that?
Ruben?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chico. All in favor of granting the variance request, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? All right, the ayes have it. The motion is carried. The variance request is granted.
And can I interject something? Mr. Scurry was able to get onto the call.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So I just wanted to let him know that things went in his favor.
Okay. All right.
Hey, Mr.
Is he
Scurry.
still on the call?
I believe so. Mr. Scurry, if you're there, you have the
Yeah, yes, I'm here. I finally got connected. Yeah.
I'm sorry about that, sir.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, but we went ahead and granted the variance request, so we appreciate your willingness to try and work with this with the technology. I thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Scurry.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.
All right, next item on this evening's agenda is appeal number BZA-2020-07, a variance request from the setback requirements in section 3-8.1.9 of the Unified Development Ordinance for the installation of a carport. Location is 1619 Pineland Avenue, tax map number 90036-01-003. Owner of record is Susan Goldstein, and the applicant is Dennis Bankson. The board will now hear from staff.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
I will get ready to share the screen.
All right.
All right. Yes, the applicant is requesting a variance from the side setback requirement to construct a carport over an existing parking pad. This parcel is located behind what, if you're familiar with Florence, the former location of the Ryan's restaurant, and then across the street is the St. Paul's Methodist Church. So it is behind that, on the block behind that. It is, there's the more close picture of it. It is zoned residential NC10 and is commercial auto urban for the future land use. The ordinance specifies that in the NC districts, carports and car covers may be constructed outside of the building envelope with support posts shall be no closer than 3 feet to any side property line, or 10 feet from a rear or from a front or street side. It's way more than 10 feet from the rear and front property lines, but it is very close to the side property line, as you'll see in a moment. These pictures, the upper left is the house from the street. And then on the upper right is a better picture of, like you're looking straight down the property line from the street. And I measured it's 100 feet from the street to the edge of the parking pad. And then the lower two photos are closer photos. And we didn't have an exact survey, but the applicant believes that the post next to the bushes on the lower left of the fourth picture is approximately where the property line is. And then the stakes with the white flags on them are where they want to put the support posts for the carport. As you can see, the parking pad is right up next to the house, so there's really no wiggle room in between there. And the parcel, as you can see on the lower left picture, is up against the side wall of the neighbor's house. So it's not next to their driveway. And they do have a letter in writing. I received an email from the neighbor that she had no problem with her putting the carport there. And it will be an open carport. It's not enclosed.
Right.
The conditions that a variance from the terms will not be contrary to the public interest. The owner wants to be able to use that existing parking pad. It's an elderly lady. And if she has to put the carport somewhere else, it won't line up with the door of her house, which is necessary for her to stay out of the elements, which is the whole purpose of the carport. That the spirit will be observed. It will meet all other requirements of the ordinance except for that one side setback. And again, the neighbor has indicated in writing that she doesn't have a problem with it. That there's extraordinary exceptional conditions. The parking pad is pre-existing. This house was built in the 40s. I don't know when the pad was put in, but it's a size that if you were to place the post 3 feet from the property line, they'd be kind of in the middle of the parking pad. The pad itself is only about 12 feet wide. That these conditions do not generally apply to other property. The hardship's limited to this parcel because of the location of the pad and the narrowness of the lot. That because of these conditions, it would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict utilization of the property. If strict adherence to the ordinance does allow her to continue to use it, obviously, as a single-family resident, but it would limit the ability of her to place the carport over the existing pad in a usable dimension. If she were to put the post 3 feet from the property line, we estimated she would only have about 9 feet, which with your average car being about 8 or 9 feet wide, that would defeat the purpose. And the authorization will not be a substantial detriment to adjacent property. Again, the neighbors indicate in writing she doesn't have a problem with it, and with it being 99 feet off the road, unless you're looking for it, you're not even going to see it as you drive by. And it could, since it is a carport, it can be removed easily in the future. And that concludes staff's report.
The email wasn't included in the report, but you said y'all have it on
Yes.
file. Okay, that's fine. I mean, I believe you. I just just want to dot my i's and cross my t's just to make sure.
And the applicant is online if you want to talk to him.
Okay, great. Are there any questions for staff from members of the board?
Yes.
Yes,
that
Mr.
The carport, was there, prior to this, was there an existing structure over that foundation?
I don't think so.
So there's no record of any standing structure that was there prior, and they just...
I don't believe there was anything else there.
And would it be attached to the house, or would it be detached? Or
My understanding is that it will butt up against the house so that it will cover the door. I think he said it would be about 15 feet wide, so that would cover the area from the house to the edge of the pad and then the pad itself.
so it would be attached to the roof of the house?
It would.
This is Dennis Bankson. That is a gabled end of that house, so it wouldn't be attached to the roof line. It would actually be attached to the side of the house,
Right.
and then pitched away from the house like a lean-to. Basically, it's a lean-to carport attached to the house.
Give us 1 second, Mr. Banks, and let me finish with staff, and then we'll get to you, I promise.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I promise. Mr. Poston, does that kind of answer your question so far?
It does.
Okay. Yep. Are there any other questions for staff?
I have a question. Is this like a metal carport they're talking about? Or is this going to be built?
I think Mr. Banks will cover that when he does his presentation.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. All right, Mr. Bankson, if you don't mind, sir, I'm going to try to swear you in via Zoom.
Okay.
This is a unique thing. You may want to jot down this time and place.
Okay.
Just kidding. Do you promise that you're about? Do you promise that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, good. All right, you may go ahead, sir.
In answering the question about the structure of the lean-to carport, she would like for it to have a metal roof, but the structure itself would be 3 posts and 2x6 rafters or roof joists, you might call it. So the only thing that you would see would be the 3 posts and the front edge in wood. If you were to look at it from an angle, it would look like it was metal, but the metal roof, that's all the only thing that's metal on it, and the rest would be wood.
And just to clarify, it will not be attached to the house?
It will be. Yes, it will be.
Attached to the house. Okay, okay. All right. Are there any questions for Mr. Bankson for members of the board? Ms. Moses, did he answer your question earlier about the makeup of the actual carport?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. And Mr. Poston, I'm sorry, Nathaniel Poston, you're satisfied so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. There are no other questions. The board will now entertain a motion to either approve or deny this variance request from members of the board. Any members of the board want to make a motion to either approve or deny this variance request? All right, there being none, the chair will make a motion. I move that we grant this request for a variance based upon the following findings of fact: that a variance of the terms of the unified ordinance will not be contrary to the public interest, and that the owner wants to be able to use the existing property, the parking pad, I apologize, and she has put into the carport somewhere else. It won't line up with the door of the house, enabling her to stay out of the rain. That the spirit of the ordinance will be observed and public safety and welfare secured, and that the carport will meet all requirements of the ordinance except for the side setback. And this abuts up to the neighbor's house, and the person most impacted by this has already said that they have no problem with this structure being put in place. That there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property, and that the parking pad is pre-existing, and the size of placing the post 3 feet from the property will basically eliminate the ability for her to even park the car underneath the existing structure or the new structure. That these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity, and that the hardship is limited to just this parcel, this individual parcel, because of the location of the parking pad and the narrowness of the lot. Number 5, that because of these conditions, the application of the Unified Development Ordinance to this particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Strict adherence to this ordinance does allow use of the property, but it would limit the homeowner's ability of the property to place a carport over the existing parking pad. Again, putting the post 3 feet from the property line would essentially eliminate her ability to even use it as a safe structure. And then finally, number 6, the authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or the public good, and the character of this district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. basically because the neighbor has indicated in writing, the neighbor adjacent to the property, and indicated in writing that she has no problem with the carport being constructed there. And as staff mentioned, this structure will be constructed roughly 99 feet from the road, so it won't be seen really unless you're really looking for it. And that concludes my motion. Do we have a second?
Second,
Who was that?
Randolph.
Hey, Mr. Hunter, thank you very much. We do have a second. All those in favor of granting the variance request, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right. Any opposed? All right. The motion is approved. The variance request is granted. Mr. Bankston, thank you so much for your participation this evening.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Next item on this evening's agenda is appeal number BZA-2020-08. The variance request from the lot width and side setback requirements in Table 2-6.1.1 of the Unified Development Ordinance for the development of an out parcel. Location is South Park Shopping Center, 1508 South Irby Street. Tax map number 90093-05-004, a portion of that tax map number. Owner of record is Bellwether Holdings, LLC. The applicant is Baron Urban. The board will now hear from staff.
Alrighty. All right, the applicant is indeed requesting a variance from the lot width and side setback requirements for a new out parcel being proposed at the South Park Shopping Center. This area is located at the intersection of Pamplico Highway and South Irby Street, just south of the Walgreens. It's got the McDonald's and the Roses located in it. And it is zoned general commercial, and is all the area around it. The future land use calls for it to be commercial auto urban. According to Table 2611, when you're developing a new lot in the general commercial district, the lot width is required to be 100 feet. And then any new structures have to be 20 feet from the sides with a total of 50 feet. So it could be 20 or 25 or 30 feet. So it gives you a little bit of wiggle room there, but the total has to come to 50 feet. There is a proposal to carve out an out parcel to put in a Take 5 quick oil change site in just south of the McDonald's parking lot. And this is what the layout would be. And it would be 94 feet wide, necessitating a variance of 6 feet from the minimum lot width requirement. And the building would have side setbacks with these lot lines of 20 feet on either side. So it would have the minimum required, but not jointly would not meet the 50 feet. So they're requesting basically a 10-foot total side setback variance. They could have put it on to meet the requirements. They could have made the lot wider, but that would have necessitated it moving down into the westbound lane of the driveway there, and so it would have necessitated an easement from between the property owner and the leasee. And so just to avoid all of that, because it would not look any different the way it would be constructed, they are just asking for these variances to enable them to just draw out the out parcel so that they can accommodate the location of the existing driveway. So that's the purpose for these setback requirements.
All right. Thank you very much. Are there questions for city staff on behalf of the board? I do have one question. I know we're not supposed to look at hardships when it comes to making a decision. Are there any other options that they discussed with you?
No, like I said, they could do it to meet the 100-foot width, and
Right.
it would look exactly the same. Just the hardships there aren't really hardships, but it would just necessitate some unnecessary
Sure.
legalities.
I got you. I understand. Are there any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Look at this map. Oh, I have a question.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Will this be like on the side where McDonald's has the parking where you drive into that shopping center?
Yes, ma'am. As you can see here, it's where you go into the parking lot. The bank would be right there on your right. You'd be
Right.
facing Roses, and McDonald's is on your left. And so the edge of the lot will go up to the edge of the McDonald's parking there on the north side. And this is what it looks like from the street, the lot right now. So basically where those cars
Weird.
are lined up on the left would be the edge of the new parcel. And then it would go to the edge of the driveway.
Thank you, Ms. Moses. Are there any other questions from members of the board for city staff?
Do you want me to go through the conditions?
Yes.
The variance from the terms of the ordinance not be contrary to the public interest, that visually and practically there's really going to be no difference in the development of the out parcel without the variance. The variance simply removes the need for a complicated agreement between the owners of the property and the leasing business. The spirit will be observed. The new lot to be created will not be physically different than if it was followed to the letter. There are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to that particular piece of property. The location of the existing parking lot for McDonald's and the driveway limit the size of a new parcel that can be created without encroaching into the driveway. And there's no way to ameliorate either of these conditions. And there are no other out parcels immediately adjacent to the entrance driveway. This is pretty much the only place to put this out parcel on this site. And that the application of the ordinance will not prohibit the proposed improvements from being constructed as depicted. But application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary burden on both the shopping center owner and the business owner by creating the need for maintenance and liability agreements between them. And it will not be a substantial detriment because the improvements would be constructed the same whether the variance is granted or not. And that concludes staff's report.
Thank you very much. And just to make sure there are no other questions from members of the board? All right.
I have one. During construction, will the construction hinder the going in and coming out of that parking lot? Because sometimes it's kind of busy.
Yes, it is. The applicant is here, Mr. Irvin. Can probably address that better than I could.
Sure.
Wait, hold on one second, Mr. Irvin.
Yes.
Yep, just give me 1 second. And Ms. Moses, if you don't mind, Ms. Moses, can you ask that question again in about 10 seconds?
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
During construction.
Wait 1 second, Ms. Moses.
Okay.
I think we're good. I appreciate it, City. Thank you very much. Mr. Irvin, if you don't mind, sir, I'm going to swear you in.
Sure.
You promise that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. You can go ahead with your presentation, sir.
Oh, well, just to address the question,
Sure.
we are working with the McDonald's franchisee right now. They are also in the process of, I'm glad you noticed that they are busy over there because what they're trying to do is expand their drive-through capacity right now. And so we're making provisions for an additional parking area for them in the rear of the building. And they actually have 6 entrance drives into their parking lot right now. And as part of the lease, we're coordinating the construction of this new oil change facility to fence off those drive aisles and keep the traffic flow open through the process of construction. So yes, we have addressed that with the franchisee.
Ms. Moses, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Mr. Irvin, is there anything else you wanted to discuss?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions for the applicant on behalf of the board? Mr. Irvin, I do have one question. Several times in the application, it does mention kind of a hardship being of a legal agreement. Is there a way you could fine tune that down into about a 10-second response? Just so we can clarify what exactly would be entailed if we deny this variance.
Sure. If you notice in the site plan, I don't know, there are 3 lanes exiting the South Park Shopping Center. There are 3 lanes in that driveway. One is an entrance, one is I believe it's a left and a straight, and the other is a right turn.
Right.
We can meet the 100-foot minimum setback and the total of 50 feet of side setback by offsetting the that lower property line to 105 feet instead of 94. But it's a ground lease agreement. And so if we do that, then that 1 lane of the exit drive is really part of the landlord's property as far as maintenance, repair, liability. And so what we would write into that, what we have to write into the lease is we have to identify that area in the lease, call it the landlord's maintenance responsibility area, and divide their parcel into the part that's their responsibility and the portion of the lease parcel that's the landlord's responsibility in it. I mean, we can do that, and that's the way, and I had drawn it that way in the beginning, and the different cross maintenance and liability agreements were just a little bit cumbersome. And so I went over to planning and proposed this and asked what they thought, and they felt like it was a good solution. And so I figured that we would try it this way and make it look like we really want it to look.
Right, sir. All right. I appreciate that. Yeah, I was just kind of cloudy as to what exactly is entailed, and that does sound fairly complicated for a little piece of parking lot, but I understand completely. Are there any other questions for Mr. Irvin from members of the board? All right. Mr. Irvin, did you have anything else you wanted to add, sir?
I don't think so.
All right. The chair will now entertain a motion to either approve or deny the variance request from the members of the board.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Poston.
And based on the evaluation by the city, the first thing, that a variance from the terms of this ordinance would not be contrary to the public interest where owing to special conditions, literal enforcement of the provisions will in an individual case result in an unnecessary hardship. Visually and practically, there is no difference in the development of the parcel without the variance. Variance simply removes the need for a complicated agreement between the owners of the property and the leasing business. Second, that the spirit of the ordinance will be observed, public safety and welfare secured, and substantial justice done. The new lot to be created will not be physically different than if the ordinance was followed to the letter. Third, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to a particular piece of property, the location of the existing parking lot for McDonald's, and the driveway into the shopping center limit the size of the new parcel that can be created without approaching into the driveway. Fourth, that these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. There are no other outparcels immediately adjacent to the interest driveway. The fifth, that because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property will effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property as follows. The application of the ordinance would not prohibit the proposed improvements from being constructed as depicted. Application of the ordinance creates an unnecessary burden on both the shopping center owner and business owner by creating the need for maintenance and liability agreements between the two. In the final six, that the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of this variance. The improvements will be constructed the same whether the variance is granted or not.
All right, thank you, Mr. Poston. Do we have a second?
I second.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chico. All those in favor of granting the variance request, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Aye, vote opposed. The motion carries. The variance request is approved. Mr. Irvin, we appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you.
Sir. All right. That, there are no other items on this evening's agenda. Are there any announcements from staff coming up that we need to know about? Any surprises for members of the board?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we're all just trying to make it through this chaotic
I understand.
and trying time, and just appreciate the board's willingness to participate in the Zoom meeting. So,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Well, I just want to extend thank you to Mr. Chico, Mr. Hunter, Mr. Poston, Ms. Moses, and of course, Shalonda Dees. Thank you very much for y'all's work tonight. And Ms. Dees, welcome to the board. Welcome
Thank
to the
you.
board. Yes, ma'am. Since there's nothing else that we need to discuss, one thing I did want to throw out there, and you mentioned this earlier with the addition of Ms. Dees, I think it would be good to have some training. And you had mentioned that earlier, so I didn't know if there was a calendar put together, or if we're looking 2021 or, yeah.
Well, if the board is open to a Zoom training, we'd be glad to put one together sooner rather than later. So
Right.
if the board's open to that, we'd be glad to put something together.
What would be we're talking like an hour, 2 hour, 3 hours?
About an hour, I
Okay.
think, would suffice.
Unless we have a hearing, well, can't do November. Well, I don't know. We'll talk amongst ourselves. We'll figure
Okay.
something out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but
we,
that
we
would be
can start
nice.
we can start an email chain.
Okay, that'd be
Yep,
good. Yes,
yep.
sir.
Mhm.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I like to mention it, John.
Who was that?
Mr. Poston.
Ms. Press. All right. Very well. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 There we go. Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you guys very much. Everybody stay safe.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks.
You guys.